Yes. Allow. I don't know what that means. There we go. Okay. My very first YouTube live. And here we are with 0 people. And that's fine. Like on TikTok, I kill it, but here, this is my very first one. So, all right. Maybe we'll dual live and see what's going on over here. Dun, dun, dun. Engage with your audience. What can you do there? Start a Q&A, start a poll, let your viewers weigh in. That's cool. Hello, somebody's here, or is that just me? Top fans. I don't know. I don't have any top fans. Hey, my name's Gary. Oh, and they're gone. It's just like TikTok. It's just like TikTok. Oh, mercy. Oh. So, you got to start somewhere, right? Like you can't just pop on with 1,000 people watching you right off the get-go. On TikTok, I'm kind of a big deal. No, I'm not a big deal, but I have like 23,000 followers on TikTok, and my lives usually get anywhere from like, I don't know, anywhere 15 to like I've had 185 at some point, which for me is a lot. So anyway, we're gonna talk here, and this is really just trying to get trying to build a fan base here and check the boxes that I've done alive. What is this? You don't have access to this feature. That's fine. All right. So again, my name is Gary. I'm an emergency room nurse. I've learned that you really have to start talking, because if people scroll through and you're just staring at the screen, they're not going to listen to you. So I've been an ER nurse for 8 years, a nurse for 9. Started my career in the emergency department, in the ICU, a medical surgical ICU. And I moved to the ER just over 8 years ago, and have been in it and worked in 4 different emergency rooms at this time. So we're gonna actually, let's take a picture of this, because this is gonna be hilarious. I'm gonna share it out to my 23,000 followers uh, on TikTok. There you go. I'll take a little video there. Yep. So this is me doing my first YouTube live to all of 0 people, no likes. I mean, you got to start somewhere, right? When I first did my first TikTok live, it was awful. And look at me now. Yep, so this is me. First YouTube live. 0 people, no likes. I mean, you guys, right? I'm TikToking in real time. Look at me now. Yep, so this is me doing my first YouTube live to all of YouTube live. I mean, I have like 304 people following me, so. Oh my gosh. This is hilarious. Absolutely bombing over on YouTube live. Exclamation mark. I clearly do not have the following on YouTube that I have on TikTok, comma, but hey, you got to start somewhere, comma, right? All right. Just do my usual hashtags. That's funny. Oh, don't want to watch that clown. All right. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm really just going to talk for, I don't know. Shit, I don't know. Let's talk about charge nursing. I'm going to talk about that on my YouTube live, on my TikTok live later. The whole scam that is being a charge nurse, and it doesn't matter what floor you're on. It doesn't matter if you're a charge nurse in ICU, PCU, step down unit, medical surgical, floor nurse, ER. It doesn't matter. I have been charged in an ICU. I've been charged in an ER. And I think the thing that really, at first, when you're a younger nurse and you first get tapped to do that, I think there's a little bit of prestige that goes with that. Like, hey, they trust me to lead this department. They believe that I can interact with these nurses and the families and the interdisciplinary teams that come through there. But the longer you're in it, I feel like the more people understand that it is not the honor that I think people initially think it to be. And I don't particularly care for it. I don't mind doing it. I think I'm pretty good at it. I've had multiple nurses that I work with approach me and tell me that they are glad when I'm charge nurse because I feel like things run much more smoothly. But it is an added amount of stress, and you don't get compensated for that, not fairly. So you're asking a nurse with presumably considerable experience to lead a department, to interact with members of other departments. Oops, sorry about that. Effectively, whether that's respiratory therapy, whether it's the admitting team, the ICU team, the nurse on duty, or the house supervisor, whatever you want to call it, they're supposed to manage this department for 12, 13 hours. And you're only going to pay them 12 extra dollars. Because in a lot of places, it's $1 an hour extra to be charged. You are responsible for every patient in that emergency department. When you do handoff to the next, like night shift or day shift charge, you essentially have to get handoff on every patient. And the way that typically works is towards the end of shift, maybe a half hour before shift change, the charge nurse will go around to every nurse that has beds and bed assignment, and they'll ask them, I need just a quick update on every patient. Very short. What are they here for? What have we found? What can we expect? Like, what's their chief complaint? What have we done for them? Are we expecting admission, discharge, transfer? And they have to do that for every patient in the emergency department. Now, this is typically for smaller rural ERs, like say 20 beds. That's a fairly common practice. I've worked in 2 of those, and that was ubiquitous in both of them. Now, if you work in a larger level 1 trauma center where you have 80, 100 plus ER beds, that's not feasible. In some cases, they'll have the ER divided up into pods. So you might have like a nurse that's kind of in charge of that pod and a nurse in charge of that pod. When I was at a level 1 trauma center, we had 1 charge nurse for the entire emergency department. We had 7 pods. So we had 200 pods were psychiatric, ER, 600 pods were pediatric only, 700s were fast track kind of stuff, easy stuff. And then the 500s were trauma bays. And then your 300s and 400s were, ESI 3s. And that was pretty much it. But you're asking a charge nurse to take on such an added responsibility. I got 1 viewer in here, my first viewer. I'm talking about charge nursing. My name's Gary. I'm an emergency room nurse. Thank you for popping by. I don't know how long you stay. Over on TikTok, I have a pretty large following for me, but I wanted to give this YouTube thing a try. It's a little less restrictive, but we're talking about charge nurses. And one of the things that bothers me is that you're asking these charge nurses to take on all this responsibility, and in some cases, you're not even going to pay them. Like you're going to maybe $1 extra an hour. I've seen as much as 2. I've never gotten that. And then I've seen some nurses that have chimed in and said, we don't get anything to be charged. And where I work now, I don't get anything to be charged nurse. So when they took me out of the rotation for a month, I was ecstatic, man. That made me happy. I could just take my bed assignment, and that's all I had to worry about for the whole shift. Just my beds, just my patients. I didn't have to worry about dealing with anybody else other than whatever was directly related to my patients. So if you are a nurse and you have been charge nurse, please feel free to pop in the comments here. I think that's one of the nice things I like about doing a YouTube so far is that I can actually chat with y'all in real time on my laptop and not have to type on the little screen. So please feel free to introduce yourself. My name is Gary, and I'm an emergency room nurse. I also am an EMT. I got my EMT in 2004, let it lapse, got it back, and I've been running for the last 8 years with a local agency on a volunteer basis. So, I mean, I could definitely get paid, but it's my community service. It's what I do to give back. So, all right. So we had 3. Now we're down to 1. I got 1 like. Hey, thank you. I appreciate that. You are the very first like that I have gotten on a YouTube live. So, and it took less than 10 minutes. So I appreciate you. Now, the only thing is I can't see who's here. Like, I don't know how to see who's here. Do I just click on this button? No, that didn't work. Top chat, live chat, all messages available. There we go. I can do all messages and participants moderation. Okay. See, I'm still figuring this out. So participants, there we go. Participants. Or is it just me? Is anybody down there? Somebody did like it. I don't know who it was. I hit participants and there's only me. It's just me. But there's got to be somebody else in here because when I was for the first like 5 minutes, it was just zero. So I know somebody's in here. So anyway, that's gonna be my beef for the day is how charge nurses are expected to take on all this responsibility and they don't get compensated for it, not fairly anyway. So what's the incentive there? And the other thing is where I work now, almost all of our nurses on our tour get cycled in to be a charge nurse. Not all. We have like 3 or 4 that don't. But most of us do. Most of us have a lot of experience, but not all of us are particularly adept at it. And everywhere else I have worked, your charge nurses are usually the most level headed, can handle just about anything. They've seen and done just about everything in the emergency room. And they're not going to get flustered about a lot of things. And that's what you need. You need a steady hand that's going to be calm in the face of who knows what walks through that door. So, it's weird to work at an ER where they're like, "Oh no, we just rotate. We let everybody be charge nurse." Well, most everybody, not everybody. There's some that aren't, and that's just weird to me. Like, and I've made my feelings on that very clear to the management. I have stated that not everybody needs to be charge nurse. There are some nurses that don't want to be charge nurse, that they're making be charge nurse. And when you don't want to be something and they make you be that thing, you are typically not that good at it because your heart's not in it. You don't want to do that. Now, I don't particularly like doing charge because it's a more stressful day for me. I feel like I am probably better suited for it, probably because of my very diverse professional background, having worked in different agencies and dealt with different levels of people, and not strictly just healthcare. So I think like I have a good sense for how to run a department. And I've had multiple nurses come up to me and said, "Hey, I let you comment now." What was it? Sophie. Hello, Sophie Van Wild. I like that name. It lets you comment now. Was it not letting you comment? This is my very first YouTube live, and I'm still kind of feeling my way for it. I don't understand like why you wouldn't be able to. Maybe you had to go live for a certain amount of time before people could comment, but I'm going to type right back. Hello, Sophie. Sophie, are you a nurse or did you just find this randomly? Wendy, welcome, Wendy Hamilton, 76-year old retired RN. First job was Bellevue Emergency Ward in 1978. Bellevue, Washington? You're talking about, oh, were you in Bellevue, Washington? I used to live out there in Tacoma. Spanaway, to be specific, but Tacoma was the larger area. My brother still lives out in, I don't know what, Sophie, I don't know why I put a question mark there. Who knows? I'm not used to being able to interact and talk at the same time, and that's too many things at once. Oh, you have to have a YouTube account in order. I see what you're saying. That makes more sense. So that makes sense. Sophie, did you find me on TikTok? 'Cause I think I posted on TikTok. I was kind of poking fun of myself for not having anybody in here. So, uh, but hey, when I did my very first TikTok live, I did better than I thought. But like in the beginning, when you do your first one, I mean, very few people are going to pop in, and I'm not sure what their algorithm is in terms of pushing it out for other people to see. But I've had lives, you know, typically I get 15 to 25 steady viewers when I do a TikTok live. I've had as many as like 165 or 185 like that, which is really cool. But I really wanted to give YouTube a try. So, Wendy, I worked for YNHH for about 30 years and CCU, always understaffed. Yeah, I mean, I don't feel like that's not a new problem and it's not a unique problem. Now, I will say where I work, we are adequately staffed in the emergency department. Now, that comes at a cost. The manager that just retired after almost 40 years has a budget that they have to work within. And that manager sacrificed like a ward clerk or an MSA or HUC or whatever terminology you use for additional nursing staff. So what that means is there's a trade-off. We're adequately staffed. Even when people call out, we are still usually fine. We aren't taking in a ridiculous amount of patients. Our ratio is 4-to-1 in the emergency department. A lot of times we end up not having to take a full 4-bed assignment because we have enough nurses. Once in a blue moon, we will have to do that, but very rarely. Not like working at the other hospitals where I was taking minimum 4, sometimes more, which is not safe. But it's a VA hospital, so VA handles things a lot differently. Now, like I said, that's the emergency department. I know that the floor nurses and the ICU and the PCU, those seem to have the same staffing issues that every other hospital has. So I'm not sure where the disconnect is between the emergency department, whether it's just a manager that has really focused their attention on getting RNs in there and sacrificed other positions to do that. So let's see. I don't know what YNHH is. Nurses are overworked and underpaid. I think for the most part, that's true. I would say I am very blessed. I work now. I've been in the VA for almost 4 years now. And when I started there, I was making comparable to what I was making at an outside hospital. Since then, I have bumped up to where I'm doing pretty well. In between working I don't work night shift, but I get night shift differential because of my shift because I work mids. And the way that we handle it is if you work 10 to 10, you get full night shift differential. It's just how they managed it because they're trying to keep people. And one of the ways they're trying to keep people is by offering that type of pay because people often don't want to come to the VA and work because whatever the stigma. I had done a year-long residency through the VA and I absolutely loved the emergency department. So when there was an opportunity to come back, I did. So, all right, got a question. Do you work at a trauma center? Not anymore. I used to work at a level 1 trauma center and I did that during the height of the pandemic. And so that was, I mean, I definitely lost a lot of sleep. I definitely have some legitimate PTSD from all of that. And I would still be working there today had I not got this job that I have now. So I think I'm in a much better place than I was, 4 years ago when I was at a level 1. But I did enjoy it. It was great. I learned a lot, met some really awesome people, a lot of trauma bonding for sure. But I've worked at a level 3 and a level 1 trauma center. I'm a flight nurse, I'm a flight nurse prepared. I have never actually had a position as a flight nurse, but I've been through the flight nursing program through Echo Heliops, which is like a 10 to 12 month. It started off as 10 months. It ended up being a full almost 12 months with all the work that we put in. But we did conferences. We learned how to do manage impellas, balloon pumps, how to do chest tubes, all those kind of things like finger thoracostomies. They put you through the ringer. You have got to do all these sim lab, like really ridiculous sim lab stuff, like the worst possible case scenarios that all these flight providers that taught the course, they've all had. And so they just put that into the sim lab and you've got to deal with it. So, I would like to still fly. I just, at this point, I can't afford to take that kind of pay cut because flight nursing does not get paid a whole lot on average because it's such a competitive industry. Like there are so many people that want to be flight nurses, they can afford not to pay them a lot. Now there are some agencies that pay pretty well, but not around here that I could justify leaving my current job. So not with two kids still in school. So I've got one that's grown. So how many level 1 trauma centers do you have in your state? Oh gosh, I don't know. A lot. We have a lot of level 1 trauma centers in our state. I couldn't even begin to tell you how many. So I don't know. Let's see. A lot of people I follow on TikTok are just getting into flight and it looks cool. It is. Sophie, I mean, I have flown before. I've not been paid to do that. Usually it's a ride along through folks, other flight providers that I know that will work in a ride along. And I loved it. And that's why I applied to and got into the Echo Heliops future flight crew program. It was very intense. But at the end of it, they gave me their blessing. And if anybody if you're interested in flight and you don't follow the Heavy Lies the Helmet podcast, I highly recommend it. It's an excellent podcast. They've been around for years. The founder, one of the founders, has two brothers, Mike and Brian Boone. Mike Boone was actually my uh, flight mentor. He's a flight nurse, and he was my mentor during that program, as well as Dan Rao to a certain extent. Dan Rao is a now retired flight nurse, but he's a acute care nurse practitioner. Still works in the like in an ICU setting. But they're two of the mentors that I had, and they were wonderful. Now they're tough; like they will grill you, like you got to know your stuff, and they will put you through the ringer. And if they'll call you out if you try to like fudge anything. So let's see. We only have one level 1 trauma center here. Oh, that must be a. Oh, you love that podcast? Yeah. So Mike Boone, he was my, mentor, because when you're in the program, I think there was like 25 of us across the entire country that got in, and then each of the flight instructors were assigned a couple of students to be their, mentees. And so Mike Boone was one of mine. I was super excited because I was following his podcast before I even got into the program. So I was really excited. So I keep in touch with Mike. It's been almost 5 years since we wrapped up that program. And of course I've been following his brother, Brian, who is a miracle. He had stage 4 colon cancer and has survived. He has far exceeded the survival rate, and he's in remission. He's actually gotten to the point where they've been able to do some surgeries because they weren't able to do those for a really long time. So it's really good news that Brian is doing better. And so happy for him and his family. And Mike has been a great resource for me. So yes, love it. Yeah. I remember. So here, the scary thing was when Mike announced to the world that Brian was diagnosed, like it was like we all thought it was a death sentence. We didn't think Brian was going to make it through the end of the year. I think this was 2021, maybe. And we actually held like an in-person goodbye, where a bunch of us from the program were able to come down. I was not able to attend, but they live streamed it. So we were able to interact virtually and talk to them. And we were literally saying our goodbyes to Brian. Like everybody was crying. It was emotional. And he's got a young family and a wife. And you're just like, oh my God, I cannot believe we're doing this. And then a few months would pass and we get an update from the GoFundMe page where Mike would update it. And then you're just like, oh my gosh, he's hanging on. And then a couple months ago, we got one and said he is in remission. Like he is doing well to the point they're going to be able to actually do a surgery, which they said he's not well enough to do that. So yes, it is now. He's got a long road to hoe, but he has far exceeded the survival rate. He's got more time with his kids and his wife. So we're super thrilled about that. So Sophie, what kind of nurse are you? Do you work in an emergency department? As you say, you only have one trauma center in your state, so you must be in a very small state. Rhode Island. Are you in Rhode? You don't have to say that. I'm just kidding. That's a small state. That would be my first guess. Because I would imagine Connecticut has more than one. Massachusetts definitely has more than one. So yes, it had to be a very small, or like one of those like Midwestern where they only have like one big city for the whole state. Not a nurse, just finished EMT class. Oh, Vermont. Oh, okay. Vermont only has one level 1 trauma center. Oh, okay. It's probably just not it's probably a larger state geographically speaking, but maybe population wise, not so much. Not to justify having more than one level 1. All right. Well, congratulations on finishing EMT class. Have you taken your registry yet? When I took mine, it was paper. We didn't do it on computers. So now when I took the NCLEX, I had to, yeah, it was on a computer, but no, when I took my EMT, in fact, we didn't even have National Registry when I did it. And then when I let it lapse, when I decided to get it back, I was able to challenge for the state. So I was able to, or in the National Registry. So I just had to do like 40 continuing education hours. And then I was able to go sit for the National Registry. So I took that. I didn't have to do I did not have to do the skills. I just had to take the test. And that's all I had to do. I just walked in, took the test, and then beat feet out of there. No, did I have to do the skills? I may have had to do skills. I don't know. It's been so long, I can't even remember. Yeah, small, like critical access. I've worked at one of those. Well, it was like I've worked at a level 3 and I've worked at like just a community hospital. They weren't any type of trauma center because there was one like 40 minutes away. They would just have to go there. No, not yet because I had just had major surgery end of May and have pretty much been. Oh no, are you in the hospital now? I hope not. Well, I mean, I hope you're doing better. I hate that you had to have a surgery. End of May. Goodness gracious. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to say what it is, but I hope you're on the road to recovery. I hope you'll have a good outcome and then can take your registry. So, but I appreciate you interacting. My first YouTube live and having somebody who's in the healthcare industry uh, engage. I really appreciate that. I just love that name, Sophie Van Wild. That is pretty cool. I like that name. There was a guy on one of my lives earlier today on TikTok. Uh, I don't know. I want to say guy. I don't know gender, but the name was really cool. It was Christian with a KH, and I thought that was pretty cool. Uh, so yeah, it was. I was like, oh no, maybe this is just like one of those screen names. You just do a screen name kind of thing, and no, it was actually their name. So, all right, got somebody else in here. I don't know who else is in here, but hello, welcome. My name's Gary. I'm an emergency room nurse. This is my very first YouTube live. I have now had, I think, a total of 4 people in here. But hey, you got to start somewhere. So this is not where I'm going to be broadcasting from in perpetuity. Eventually, I will be downstairs in my soon-to-be podcast studio/workout room. Whenever I record podcasts, we'll have to do a little bit of rearranging, but it's easy. Things are on wheels. I can just roll them out of the way. Supposed to be ordering all the stuff for this Beyond the Call Light podcast. I've got some guests lined up. I've got a flight nurse out of Ohio, the Blakery content. He's a wonderful educator. He's presenting at 2 conferences, one in West Virginia, one in North Carolina. He's actually invited me to come up and do a ride along up in Ohio. This is the cool thing about them, Sophie. This is pretty cool. So the times that I have flown in an EC-135. It's a relatively small dual seat cockpit, dual engine, which is good. I always prefer to fly dual engine. I don't like single engines. And then you fly one paramedic and one RN, and then you have your patient. His agency flies dual pilots, and most agencies don't do that because it's expensive. But if you have a pilot lose consciousness or have a stroke or any type of medical event, blood sugar, whatever, now granted, they have to meet very strict health and physical fitness parameters because they don't want anybody doing that. But it has happened. It's happened to people that I work with. And they get 2 pilots. And not only that, they fly a nurse, medic, and an advanced provider. So whether that's a advanced PA, MP, or a physician or resident. And that is unbelievable luxury. So, clearly not a for-profit program. I think he's tied to like a teaching hospital or a community hospital. So come here. I can get you a ride along. We're going to Massachusetts soon. And one of the guys I follow on TikTok is setting me up. That's awesome. Oh yeah. I love my patches. They're hard to find. A lot of people have gotten away from. Yeah, medic nurse is usually what most programs are going to fly. It's not often. I know Indiana, which is where Dan Rao flies out of. He used to fly out of. I think they flew with an advanced provider. Now, every now and then you'll get like residents who are doing a rotation, and they'll be able to come in and cycle through and do some of that, but not on a full-time basis. Usually it's a nurse, medic, and a pilot. So, but to have 2 pilots and an advanced provider. Now they fly EC-145s, which are a lot bigger and can fit more equipment and stuff in there. So very cool. Let's see. No, I got home this past Thursday for the 5th time. It's me done in May. Oh my gosh. Oh no, I'm so sorry you had a lot of complications. 7 bowel obstructions. Oh my gosh. That's a lot. Well, I hope they were able to get it figured out and get you back 100%. Yeah. I've actually been thinking about doing some type of like podcasting like series where I go to different flight programs and just do a fly along with them, ride along, fly along, and just document that, from a like a positive standpoint, not any type of like behind the scenes gotcha kind of story. But there's actually a channel on TikTok where I'm trying to think what it's called. It's basically this guy. He just goes around different stadiums. I think he started doing it with just English football, but now he does it for American baseball, American football, and he will just go to these stadiums. And usually it's the VIP stuff. Like, okay, we're gonna go to the VIP, and this is the food that you get. You get a voucher for this. It's never like he never says anything bad about them. He's always highlighting just kind of the basics and the but I was thinking about doing that for flight programs, just going to different flight programs and doing fly-alongs and talking about the helicopter and whatever. I think that'd be kind of neat. Oh yeah, it depends. Yeah, some have requirements, but I think if you get your EMT, I think if you have a background, a lot of them, if you have a medical background, whether it's a nurse or whether it's an EMT, a lot of them will try to work you in, and then some will offer some type of like educational course. Like there's one that did a day long advanced airway course. So I took the advanced airway course. It was taught by the flight nurses and medics. And then at the end of that, everybody got a 12-hour fly along. Then they could schedule out for whenever they were available. So you show up and you put your flight suit on and get your helmet and you get to go fly along for 12 hours. If you get no calls, that's bad. No fun doing that. But usually you get at least one or two. So sometimes more. But there's always the risk that they're going to leave you behind because it's all weight based. So if you get a very heavy patient, um, then a lot of times they'll be like, "Hey, we're going to have to leave you here, and we'll send somebody to come get you." And that can be a challenge if you flew 2 hours away, because or if you flew like a 30-minute flight, that's a 2-hour drive home in some cases around here. So let's see. And the interesting thing is, in other countries, like in the UK, they don't fly at night. They don't fly instrument flight rules. It's visual. This is as of like 5 years ago when I was in flight school. One of the things we had to learn about was programs in other countries, and in the UK, they are all volunteer. There are no paid positions for flight, and they only fly during the day and during good weather. There are no instrument flight rule flights at night because they deem it too dangerous. So, which is interesting. We don't do that here, but again, we're for profit here. Most flight programs are going to be for profit, and they bill a lot, anywhere from like $30,000 to $50,000 for a flight to a trauma center, and that's pretty expensive. Now, most insurance companies will cover that, but if you don't have insurance or you have Medicaid, then the reimbursement's pretty low on that. So you got a lot of these for profits popping up, and then when Medicaid reimbursement goes down, there are going to be a lot of them shut down, which means there's going to be even fewer jobs for flight providers, which is going to make it more competitive. So, yeah. Holy smokes. Amanda Crow on my TikTok, one of my TikTok followers, I did a post just a little bit ago. I'm launching a podcast. It can be a little expensive. And so I'm rolling out a sponsorship thing for people who have small businesses that want to advertise. We'll do some reads during the podcast. And then I also just said, hey, if you feel so inclined and would like to help support the podcast, here's my Cash App, my Venmo. I'm going to use all this money that comes in to buy equipment because it's expensive. I've got this microphone right here, which is not cheap. I've got a new laptop. I have to have a green screen and a desk, which I don't have. So I don't have an office at home. So I've got to basically start from scratch. And I just got my first donation. It's great. As if everybody that follows me donated $1, I'd have like $23,000, and I could fund that podcast until the day I die. So yeah, so I got one donation down. I think that's awesome. I'm so happy. We're going places. So all right. So we had Boston Life Flight stop by our pad recently to get a patient, and the pilot talked about how they fly. Yeah. So that's I actually asked this question during one of my fly-alongs, and it was with people I know and work with. So I felt very, very comfortable flying with them. I work with them in an EMT setting and in nursing because they also do some in hospital stuff. And one of the things I asked was like, "What happens if your pilot has a stroke?" And they go, "Funny you should ask, because one of our pilots did have a stroke while we were in the air." And then they have since gone on to speak at multiple flight conferences about pilot incapacitation and what to do when that happens. That's why I really like the Ohio program that the Blakery content guy flies at, because they use two pilots. One pilot goes out, you've got somebody who can just take over the reins and get you down safely. So in an EC 135, there is not a lot of room from the front where the pilot sits in the co-pilot seat to the back. And so if you needed to get to the front seat mid-flight, that is going to be an ordeal. In the bigger you are, I'm a big guy. I'm 6 foot 209, not 210, 209 at the doctor's office with clothes on. So like more like 207. But it's hard to squeeze up in there. They had a pilot who I think had a TIA, a mini stroke, wasn't responding, was still kind of alert, but couldn't answer questions. So they had to get somebody squeeze up into the cockpit, get into the other seat. They had to get him out because the side seat does not have controls. Only the right side had controls. Had to get him out, the pilot out, had to get into the seat, had to contact air traffic control, and they had to walk him through how to like land a helicopter. Now, before the nurse or paramedic had to land the helicopter, the pilot was able to regain enough sense to walk them through it directly, and or land the plane. I'm not sure if he got back in the seat and landed, but they were able to land safely. But that was a scary moment, and that's why I feel more comfortable. You're flying two pilots. So, oh yeah, they had a flight member pass on shift on the last week. Oh my gosh, the flight provider passed away. Oh, that's awful. Oh my gosh. Oh man, yeah, that's terrible. Yeah. It's I have the guys that I flew with, one of them came to get one of my patients that we were transferring out. And I mean, it was one of these like I didn't have high hopes that this patient was going to make it. Like you just had that feeling, that sense that we're going to fly this guy out, but I don't think he's long for this world. And they got him in the helicopter, and 10 minutes later they rolled back in and they were like, "Yeah, he coded," and he was a DNR. So they were like, "He coded." We brought him back in. We were able to pronounce him in the hospital, and then the family, I think they had just gotten on the road to go to the other hospital, and yeah, it was sometimes that happens. So, but all right, Sophie, are you on TikTok at all? It's hard because if you have a patient on and your team member codes, yeah. Again, yeah, that's a tough call. I think, yeah, that's a tough call. I think your duty, and it's one, I think there's no wrong answer here. I don't think, if my teammate, you know, or something were to happen, I think my priority would be on them, because chances are I know them and I know their family. I'm going to call for help. I'm going to do, hopefully I've stabilized my flight patient. Usually you want them stabilized before you put them in the helicopter. And in most cases, when the flight team comes to the bedside, if they don't feel that that patient is stable to fly, they're going to stabilize them first. That means they need to intubate them, medicate them, whatever they need to do to make them comfortable for the flight. They're going to do that in the hospital where they have space. Then they're going to load them up. So hopefully that patient was packaged and in a position that they could be left alone for a few minutes while they attended to the crew member who was having the issue. So, but yeah, that's a tough situation to be in, and I feel awful for that person's family. But Sophie, if you are on TikTok, I am Gary the ER nurse there, same screen name. Please consider following me there, and I will definitely give you a follow back. And then I don't know, can I follow you from here? Pin message, report, remove. Oh no, I can't. But I'll go to channel. Can I go to your channel? Oh, there you are. Well, I'll subscribe. I don't, even if you don't post a whole bunch of stuff, but I do appreciate you popping in here. I am gonna. I actually need to go be productive. It's the kids are at school. My wife is at work, and I would love to stay on here and talk all day because I could. I used to work in television and radio. I can talk all day, even to just one person. So not in public though. You meet me out in public, I'm introverted and I will keep my head down and keep walking. But out here, I can be vocal. So, but I'm gonna go. Actually, I got chores to do. I got bathrooms to clean today, and then I'll pop back on later. So, I gotta go. I gotta go be an adult, and I really don't like being an adult. Sometimes it's a lot of responsibility, and I didn't sign up for this. None of us did. None of us had a choice to come into this world. We were brought into this world against our will, and we're just fighting for survival. So, but Sophie, thank you so much. I really enjoyed talking with you, chatting with you, and answering your questions and learning more. And I look forward to keeping up with you in the future. And I really hope that you get to feel better, and that you can make a recovery because you have been through a lot. And I definitely feel for you. But yeah, so I look forward to seeing you around. Hopefully, I'll catch up with you on Twitter, and I follow you here as well. So thank you all so much. I appreciate those folks that popped in, and I will do this again some other time.